Angela?
Hi, Frank.
Do we have anyone in the lobby joining?
We have attendees in the webinar.
I see. We're waiting for. Gonna wait for a bit more people to join, and then we're gonna start. But welcome everyone. For those who already joined, we're gonna wait, I think, another minute or two to make sure that everyone is here, and then we're gonna start. There we go. We have a few more people joining. Okay, well, I think we should start. We now have enough people, so we should start. Well, very good. Welcome everyone, and good morning. Welcome to this month's morning description with mParticle and Consult My, as well as two of our hosts, Aaron from Marks Spencer as a product manager, and Alex, head of product at Exinity. I'm Frank Georges, partner manager at Amplitude, and I will be your host today. Very excited to have you all on the panel today. This is our first morning descript, and today we have very exciting things to share with you. We want to discuss how to optimize essentially your tech stack to empower exponential growth for your businesses. By way of introduction to our partners, we have mParticle that makes it easy today to holistically manage customer data along the entire product and customer lifecycle. Team across company like Starbucks, NBC, Universal, Spotify, and Airbnb use mParticle to deliver great customer experience and accelerate growth. We also have Consult My App with Mike Rhodes with us today, founder and CEO of the business. Consult My App is a specialist mobile marketing team working over 19 languages for some of the most successful mobile brands in the world. They offer a wide range of services across the UK and Germany around CRM, analytics, paid user acquisition, and app optimization. So today we have great content for you today, starting with Mike Rhodes, who will set the scene essentially and talk about the current digital landscape. And then we're going to follow with a panel discussion with our two hosts for them to share their experience going through their journey in the business, utilizing that modern tech stack we are part of. For those who don't know, Morning Description is a series that is designed to bring together today's digital practitioners and leaders to learn from leading digital disruptors. Before we jump into today's content, just a bit of housekeeping. I know to make sure that everyone knows what to expect and what to do. So first of all, this session will be recorded and shared after the event. Also, we'll encourage all of you to ask as many questions as you can on the topic during the panel discussion or any part of the webinar. We're going to make sure that we can answer as many questions as we can. This is very much a session around sharing expertise and giving you all the tips and tricks in order to drive exponential growth for your business. Last but not least, we will run a poll, actually 2 polls during this webinar in order to get your feedback on what we feel are very key core question to businesses. We will run that first poll right now, just after this introduction, and another poll will be run just after the panel discussion. And now I'm going to hand it over to you, Mike, founding director and of Consult My App, will moderate essentially this meeting today. And welcome, Mike, welcome, Aaron and Alex. Thank you very much to be here, and very happy to have you on the panel today.
Good morning, and thank you, Frank, and welcome to everybody across the world, wherever you happen to be. And for those not in the UK, thank you very much for accepting the webinar being run in English. My German is not nicht sehr gut, as we would say, but thank you very much for attending. Now, hopefully this is going to be quite an interesting session for everybody. I want it to be quite informal. If you've got questions, please fire them as we go along, otherwise you'll be bored of my dulcet tones. And we're going to sort of talk about, I guess, the MarTech stack as a whole, but obviously a particular focus on probably 2 of the most important pieces of that, which are really the sort of, you know, the CDP and where the data lives, as well as the analytics and BI functions on top, because ultimately that's the end goal for all of this stuff. And to, I guess, talk about MarTech at the moment in 2021, and certainly from our clients and what we see, it's vast. I mean, it's vast and it's ever growing in terms of the number of systems and functional areas it covers, and it really does cover the entire, you know, acquisition, entire user funnel, from sort of acquisition right through to user retention and engagement, driving conversions and monetization, and it stretches as far as then reactivation for lapsed users or customers. So, you know, it really does cover the entirety of your product and marketing efforts. So really, really essential. And what's also quite interesting is MarTech has really brought with it a change in the way marketing is viewed, and hence the name MarTech, in that it's as much a product as it is a marketing sort of stack these days. And a marketing and product in most companies are starting to work closer and closer together, because, you know, you can't really have a successful marketing setup in 2021 with a web platform or an app or both without actually involving the product team, and you can't really drive successful product without embracing marketing elements of it. So really the 2 are sort of stuck together. It means there's a lot of systems here. So from, we're talking acquisition, obviously you're talking right at the top of the funnel, MMPs, mobile measurement platforms. How are you measuring your acquisition channels and efforts and success? Right through to messaging, CRM, customer experience. I mean, you've got any touch points, so phone systems, for instance, and ultimately then these feed into analytics and BI solutions. Now, as it has so many different, I guess, elements to this stack, and there's so many different systems, it gets very, very messy. And one of the challenges, I guess, that people need to address first and foremost, before you even think about building lovely, shiny reports and all of that jazz, is actually how do you tie this data together? And where does it need to live? And how do you make sort of sense of it? And I think most people on the call today will probably experience, you know, the pain of having to request custom reports from an engineering team and potentially from multiple teams in the business just to get the information you need. And, you know, that was sort of doable 10 years ago, but it's actually very, very difficult these days. And I'm sure there's a lot of pain, and people have felt that pain in amongst the people on the call today. When I was younger, so if I go back to my days in Experian, really data was quite thin on the ground if you looked at digital data, and there were no apps back then. I'm that old, but it was very much web-based. Web-based content was digital, and marketing was email and maybe SMS, and that was about as far as it got. Now the channels are vast. You've got push notifications, in-app messaging, app inboxes, browser notifications, interstitials on the web. So many different marketing channels. There are so many different touch from desktop web to mobile web to app. There is tons and tons of data that you can ultimately leverage to make your products and your customer experience better that just wasn't around all sort of 10 years ago. And things have just changed so quickly. A lot of companies, and certainly from what we see, are trying to sort of catch up and make sure they're on top of that. And I think it's also made it more difficult to manage with the likes of GDPR, CCPA, COPPA, millions of other compliance laws and legislation you need to adhere to, as well as acquisition channels outside of just Google. Just used to be PPC, and that was easy. You drag traffic to your website through Google. Now you've got ad networks, you've got Facebook, you've got social media, you've got TikTok campaigns, you've got Instagram campaigns. There are so many different channels and sources of data and formats of data. It is, even for us, and this is our job day in, day out, it is quite a challenge. So really it comes down to where do you start with all of that? And the logical place to start really is having a platform to hook into all of these other tools that you're using in the MarTech stack, suck that data in, make it consistent, and essentially keep it fresh and valid. And that really is where CDPs, the customer data platforms, have sort of come in. And obviously, mParticle hosting today happen to be one of those CDPs, but there are others out there for purposes of fairness in the industry. But ultimately, CDPs are where things start and where your journey should start. And if you don't have a CDP in place, it's going to be very difficult to ever get to a real mature level of data analytics and product-driven and marketing-driven decisions from that data. Thankfully, I could talk till the cows come home, as you might guess, about the theory and why you might want these and why you might not want these sort of platforms. But we have obviously a couple of very talented people in Alex and Aaron on the call today, who will actually talk you through the real challenges and the reasons that they chose these platforms and ultimately what they're getting out of them. But like I said, it starts with the CDP before we look at how you analyze and then make the data actionable. So I guess on that note, it might be worth, we'll throw into Alex. So it'd be good maybe if you could just talk to the point here and why Exinity chose a CDP. And what was the point in doing it? I guess you could have just carried on as you were previously and not bothered implementing a customer data platform. But what was the reason, Alex, that the guys at Exinity or you chose to go down that route?
Okay, that's quite a big question to start with. There are two main areas. We've got a product department and a marketing department. And like you said, there's lots of marketing reasons to have a CDP. And marketing initially kicked off the project, and that was before I joined, because they wanted to understand conversion optimization and the value of their marketing campaigns and those type of things. But it's not so much my area. I work with the product teams who want to understand how users are using the applications and learn from that in order to keep those build, measure, learn cycles going quickly, so that we can make sure we're building the right things. So the reasons to go for a CDP, Sid, you're going to have to stop me if I go on too long, because there's loads of this. But let's start right at the start. I'm not as focused on the marketing over in product. I just want to be able to access the data. And even if you just instrumented the CDP and connected it to BigQuery, and you've got a data warehouse, that's a huge benefit for me. Me and my analysts will write SQL in order to do data, even if we don't connect something else. And there's good reasons to connect other stuff too. But that data engineering that legacy companies do in order to make a data warehouse is huge, and it goes wrong, and it uses a lot of people, and it takes a lot of maintenance. So even that first step is a really big improvement. Do you want me to keep going and talk about?
Yeah, no, please. I guess ultimately, and I'm sure there are many people on the call that are probably quite in your position. So I think more detail the better, Alex. Go for it.
Okay, all right. So step one is that I want a database so that analysts can, well, that's one step one, right? Another step one is that you connect straight to a tool like Amplitude, and then you might even get away. You might even get away without an analyst. I mean, if I became a product manager in a startup and didn't use my analytics skills anymore, I'd probably still do CDP Amplitude so that I could quickly get product data in a really user-friendly format, and that would get us going in product management. So step one could be different depending which direction you come from. Okay, so we've got the data warehouse, and mParticle writes nicely to a whole load of tables. I don't have to do much setup to create the initial tables of the data warehouse. Amplitude organizes everything really well and lets us access all of that, and really quickly as well, like 20 minutes after we set up the implementation. I know when I talk about Amplitude, I sound like you told me to sell it, but actually I just do really like it. And then the other connections, right? We implement mParticle once, but maybe we want to use Google Analytics as well. And we're not sure, we just want to try it quickly, but we don't want to put all its own tags in. We can do those experiments. We can try Google Analytics, and we can try Hotjar, and we can try Mixpanel, and continually test the whole of this analytics stack and then the whole marketing stack without constantly doing all of the development for the tags and the implementation, which is the expensive stuff. And we want developers to be innovating on real user benefits in the product.
So is it in that case, I guess, is the pre-built hooks into those platforms that basically save you a lot of time?
Yeah, and maintenance. You know, I generally would do it all myself as a head of product analytics with very little additional tech support needed, except when we want to add new tracking or update properties or something small like that.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, that certainly from our experience, we've seen a lot of, a handful of customers that have sort of an Oracle database or something sort of a bit more old school, and writing all those connectors and making calls out to the APIs, which are the feeds, has been quite a pain for them. And then it's, how do you maintain them? What happens if they break? And it's a bit of a nightmare. So I think, technically that makes perfect sense, and I totally subscribe to the rationale behind that. And then I guess from if I can flip then to Aaron and ask from a more of a marketing perspective then, because there are thousands of different reasons you need a CDP, but I guess product and marketing are the two key players in all of this. So it'd be great to get your I guess feedback or understanding on why you went down the route of getting something like a CDP like mParticle. What was the particular driver from your perspective?
Sure. So with us, it was initially, we looked into where marketing was going, I guess, with the death of the cookies, the DMP match rates dropping on weekly basis for us. It was time to pivot and to choose something else, and that was the main driver for starting to look at CDPs. As we fell down a rabbit hole of CDPs, we suddenly saw potential in other areas. Right, it's great at marketing. It does that really well. It's got awesome connectors into all the main players, and it's good to have a central place to do all your audience management instead of having to build audiences in Salesforce and Google, etc. So it's awesome at doing that, but it was so much more, right? It was a platform like a company like M&S, where it's been around for a very long time. We've obviously got a lot of legacy platforms and a lot of places where data's sat. And it was not that easy to get hold of. If you were wanting to use a tool like Amplitude, or you wanted to sort of do some deep dive analytics, you generally have to use multiple tools to do that sort of stuff. So we saw the benefit instantly that we could have this without having to invest lots of money in development and so on and so forth. We had this way of doing identity resolution to identify customers when they hit a channel in real time. And then just to merge things and to make them into a sort of single view, I hate using the word, but a single view of a customer, a customer profile that has all of that customer activity and all of that customer data in one place. And then, like I say, we could use it for various things. We use it for things like Apple Wallet and so on and so forth, and some of our iOS applications. There's just, marketing is one area and it does it really well, but there's once you've got a CDP, you see the potential for other sort of use cases, I guess.
And I guess what has been do you think the biggest, I mean, you touched on that term that's been around forever for donkey. Even when I was younger in my career experience, we talked about single customer view and how it was like the holy grail of
it
data.
is the holy grail, yeah.
But what would you say the biggest, the biggest benefit you had, or the thing you've noticed the most since getting a CDP in place? What is the biggest benefit you've seen from it?
The biggest benefit, I guess, is just the speed of which you can do things now, right? Like if we want to, do some testing, using our own first-party data as well, instead of having to rely on, agencies and everything else, we can do it all in-house now. We can do a lot of sort of marketing campaigns a lot quicker. I guess that's the main thing, is that the way that it is real time. You can activate from it really quickly. You do have that complete view. It does highlight, interestingly, issues down system, I guess, which we've noticed, since we implemented CDP, it's highlighted a number of sort of syncing issues or data sort of discrepancies in our downward channels, which we've been able to go and resolve. But like I say, until you have this sort of platform in place, these sorts of things are quite difficult to spot. But yeah, I think they're the main benefits right now. It's just having that data accessible in real time whenever we need it, and then we can utilize that for a number of use cases.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you touched on use cases. So, I mean, a logical next question is, and I'm going to throw it right back at you, Aaron, what sort of use case have you had? Because obviously the data is one thing, but actually making it actionable. Like, this is where something, an analytics platform like Amplitude comes in, where I guess what have you actually done with it? Because it's all great having this wonderful data platform and it's all clean and lovely and fresh and up to date and single customer view. But actually, what have you done with it using an analytics tool?
So I think we're very early on in our journey with Amplitude. It's only been live, a few weeks, and the teams that are using it are already gaining a lot of insight out of it and actionable insight out of it. So I won't go into much detail about Amplitude. I'm sure Alex will have more beneficial statements to make about that. But for the CDP, for mParticle, we have our main, obviously, everybody that picks a CDP will focus on marketing. They're really quick wins. As soon as we landed the CDP, we could do suppression, which prior to having the CDP was blanket. So we just sort of have blanket suppression across all our customers, which wasn't, it worked, but it wasn't targeted. It wasn't as good as we could get it. So that was the first thing that we did with the CDP, was go after suppression use cases. And we saw a 20% increase in ROAS from just doing suppression using.
Could you give an example of the sorts of, I guess, data, just for the people on the call, that you were suppressing against?
So it'd be things like, you buy a specific BU. So you might buy, I don't know, a suit, for instance, and we wouldn't advertise. We said we wouldn't send you any more adverts for suits or in that category for up to 60 days. Because potentially you're not really going to be interested in buying another suit. So we could get down to that BU level suppression, and we could, like I say, because of the real-time nature of the platform, it's instant. So as soon as they purchase something, they're on that suppression list, and they won't get the emails and so on and so forth. So that's just one. We do things around customer lifetime value and stuff. So if you're a loyal customer or an active customer, then there's less need to contact you with marketing. So they're just a couple of the examples of use cases for suppression.
You talked about some of the metrics and the uplifts that you had as a result. I don't know if you're able to share some of those results. Obviously not absolute numbers, but something relative in percentage.
I don't, like I say, the only thing I've got right now without speaking to my team would be the 20%. So like I said, we did see a 20% increase across the board for suppression.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's not the only use case. We use it for targeting. We are getting, we're on a journey to, I'm sure every single company in the world is on a journey for personalization, but we are using the CDP to, personalize comms to customers through like emails and so on and so forth. We're starting to look into explore using it for personalizing content on the website, like product recommendations, for instance. So it's become more than the marketing tool that it was initially planned to be. It's become like the personalization engine. And the beauty about mParticle above other CDPs that we saw was the fact you're not tied into an ecosystem. You're not tied into using specific tools on top of it. They've got such a wide range of connectors, out of the box connectors, that you can plumb it into, amplitudes, and you can plumb it into, optimize leads and so on and so forth. There's the suite of tools that it works with is massive. So yeah, it was perfect for us, really.
Cool, awesome. Well, I was going to say that's quite a positive experience from it all. And then Alex, hopefully it's something equally positive from your side. It'd be great, I guess, if you could talk us through, I guess, from a more of a sort of producty analyticsy point of view with Amplitude, how you sort of used it. I know you're fairly new into your journey, so it's not like you've had 3 years with this kit yet, but it'd be great just to get a bit of a feel for what you've managed to achieve, the sorts of results and the experiments you've been running with it.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, like you said, we're still early. Exinity is building a product which isn't live yet, so it's not that we've got loads of insights from those users yet, but our previous product is still live, Forex Time, and we've been able to put some of the instrumentation in there, which is where we've got our quick wins from. In fact, it was really easy because it was already connected to Braze, which has some really similar events, so we were able to do some quite efficient development that just sent a similar set of data into the CDP, and it got us going really well, even if it was only 20 events that describe a good portion of our funnel, because they're where we sent comms. That was actually a great source of data and got some really good analysis. I mean, we did use it for marketing. That is the first quick win, because we were able to send some of those further down the funnel conversion events, which help them optimize campaigns. I don't know the figures yet. I saw the figures after like a few exposures and it had doubled the conversion rate, but I assume that not a statistically significant result, but it sounded good. So we'll see how that goes. And then we were able to use it over in product as well. So we're building a new app. We've made a set of assumptions about which features were important to our users. But because we didn't have the same tech analytics stack in the previous application, they were just assumptions or maybe from talking to customers. And by quickly scattering events across our previous app, we've been able to tell which bits of that product were being used and validate some of the assumptions about what we're building. We found out that some of the ideas for our new features were looking like they were going to be important to users, which is exactly what we want to be doing in product. And then the other area, which I think is good to talk about, is something I always talk about when I'm designing how analytics ought to work in a business, is we got unexpected benefits. So if you plan your analytics strategy to only deal with use cases that you know about, it's only going to deal with those use cases. That's going to be all the benefit you get. I like to do analytics so that it like liberates the data, and anyone smart and analytical and got a job to do can get into it and then try and get something from it. And then you discover use cases. People come back to you and tell you they were able to do something you weren't even going to expect. And that's where we did get more value from connecting up Amplitude. So we planned for the marketing and the product use cases, but we found other teams like our teams that deal with know your customer approval flows and with payment flows were able to see conversion rates, and we had some properties on those original events. So break it down by the country and the regulatory area and the payment types, and get a load of insight. We didn't plan for them to get. We didn't specify the tracking so they could get it, but because we specified decent general tracking and let people use it, they were able to discover it and tell us they were finding out things that we didn't know they were going to find out.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is sort of, I guess, music to my ears. It's the sort of stuff that we use those platforms for. Is, we look at onboarding funnels, we look at conversion funnels, and you don't need 1,000 events to do that. So when we're deploying Amplitude for clients, we're looking at things like install to reg start to reg complete to either deposit or first purchase or whatever first order if it's a food delivery company. Now, actually just tracking a small number of events really does give you a lot of information that is crucial to sort of, tweaking them and improving. I mean, if you can drive your install to first order or first purchase or whatever funnel by sort of 5%, that's an additional sort of 5 in every 100 you're sending through that go on to become a useful user. And it's those small tweaks and just looking and testing different elements of both the messaging and the product UI and UX. You can just try a couple of A/B tests, and if you structure them correctly and you get them set up right, and you work obviously between the product and marketing teams, those 5% lifts actually can make a significant difference. And we work a lot on the onboarding funnel. That's really the key sweet spot for Amplitude for us. And I think it doesn't just impact product and marketing. It also impacts the acquisition teams, because if you think if you're spending $1 million a year on sort of acquisition, and we actually reduce we improve your install to purchase conversion by 5%, you've reduced your cost per acquisition on that spend by 5%, which is significant. And this is big money. And these sorts of platforms, when you look at it from not just how many additional purchases or paying people have you gotten through the door, when you look at it from the money saved and the time saved, there are other elements that really start to come to the fore when you're looking at that. And that funnel optimization for us is definitely the biggest thing that I think our CRM and analytics team spend most of their time looking at. And I'm really glad to see that you've the sort of comms tests you were doing looked like they'd actually delivered some pretty powerful results there, which is pretty good. So I'm very happy to hear that we're not the only ones out there. You can, and as long as you know what you're doing and you're testing things in a sensible, logical way, then you'll get these improvements, and they have significant value, not just in terms of the additional dollars you see coming in through the door, but actually the dollars you're saving on your acquisition side as well. And of course, the time you're saving. And that's a big thing that Alex talked about. We don't have to go through engineering teams and it might take a week to pull a report together. You've now got that cost reduction in there as well. And I think that is something that gets overlooked a lot, because when you put together, sort of return on spend and ROI sort of projections, people generally will look at the dollars in versus dollars spent. They don't always look at dollars saved. And I think that's a really important thing to consider when you're investing in this sort of technology. I guess then the next logical question for me is the challenges. So it'd be lovely just to say this was a piece of cake and we implemented it in 6 hours, and by day 2 we had the whole platform up and running and it's all perfect. I'm sure that wasn't the case. I mean, I'd love to meet somebody that has that. If there's anybody on the call that's had a perfect implementation, do let me know, because I'd love to chat to you. But Alex, I mean, I guess if we look at the challenges and the reality of this, I mean, let's take the sugar coating off it. But what were the challenges that you had along the way implementing the CDP and Amplitude on top and actually getting to a stage where it was useful?
The biggest challenge that I think we had was in the planning of it, because it sounds, depending on how you hear it described, sounds quite big and scary. If it's a full single view of the customer with all of your business's inputs flowing in and all of your business's outputs, it sounds like it needs a big, scary project plan and lots of analysis and lots of planning, and it was difficult to get it kicked off. And I'm not really used to working that way either. I worked in teams that did much less planning, worked in much smaller units before. So I spent a lot of time selling, like, can we not worry about that big picture and just put the SDKs, just put the web snippet in and let me connect to BigQuery, and then I'll show you some stuff, and then we'll move on from there. So it was that communication thing that, selling that we could do a few small tickets and get some benefit and then work our way up instead of doing the big intimidating project.
Yeah, and on the technical implementation side, I mean, did you have any challenges? I mean, it sounds like obviously convincing people to put the snippets in, which were obviously not as big as they were. Were there any other challenges in getting it hooked into other systems, or would you say it was really just convincing people actually how relatively easy and less daunting than they thought it was?
It's a mix. Some of the connections work because they're simpler. Like once you've got events flowing, the Amplitude connection just works straight away. I don't think we had any problems except realizing we wanted more properties or a different or changing the web event title, because initially we put the page title and we ended up with 4,000 different event names. Some beginners mistakes like that we just want to change it to an FXTM web page and move the title to the property. Some of it's genuinely difficult, especially as the marketing landscape keeps changing. Google Ads platform and Facebook ads need particular identifiers which have to be an event. And we were discovering these difficulties as we went along, and there's a lot of ad networks and a lot of nuances to each of them. We haven't sorted all those out yet. So that's probably the biggest technical difficulty we've had.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll stop grilling you now, Alex. I'll hand to Aaron, who's had it nice and easy, just sit there, listen. So Aaron, from your perspective, what are the challenges that you faced? And I guess were they different to what Alex sort of came across?
Yeah, so when we implemented mParticle, it was just before lockdown. We actually went live just after as lockdown happened, and we they're not hard to build. They're not hard to build into. We had a team. My team at the time was I had two engineers and a lead engineer, so three developers basically working on it. And we set ourselves out quite ambitiously to basically implement every single touch point our customer has with us into the platform from day one. So we wanted offline transactions, so POS in-store transactions in there, all our web data, all our app data, our big data platform plumbed in, so we could use machine learning models, call center, the works. Basically, anytime a customer engages with us and shares some of that data, then we wanted that as part of that customer profile. So what I would say and watch out for is probably a bit less ambitious, because we did that so quickly, and we had it, all of these things within 3 months. We had all of these connectors plumbed into the CDP. The biggest challenge we had then was, like I said before, it was understanding that the quality of the data that we put into the CDP had to be really, really good. Otherwise, we'd just end up with another platform with poor quality data. So I think going back, I'd probably have done it a bit more a gentle rollout, I guess, and just focused on maybe the web and the app, got all of that into a good place, ensured that the quality was there. And then moved on to something else. But like I said, we just were excited and jumped straight in. So I guess that was the only thing. So it's not really an mParticle or a CDP issue. It was more around just make sure that the data that you're providing that CDP is in a clean and good state.
Absolutely. And I guess we sort of discussed a lot about sort of the use of analytics and how it shapes product and marketing, and the implementing of the CDP and of an analytics and BI platform, which is really what Amplitude is, to give you that actionable insight. I think it's fair to sort of say that it is a massive area, and we've spoken to Aaron and Alex, and we can already hear there are lots of different drivers behind this, and use cases and value that they've managed to extract from it in different areas, from messaging to product testing to analytics insight, and probably several more in between. And I think that the one thing that we definitely see as a business is, or the one benefit we see is, yes, the funnel testing and optimization is absolutely key. So the onboarding, to make sure you get the people in, understand them, actually stick with you in the first 7 days, super important. You cannot do that without an analytics platform in place. Then optimizing to increase levels of frequency and recency inside the app itself. And whether you're a retail app or food delivery, or game or social the app's there, it's got value and it's giving back. And actually testing different strategies to that and that involve both messaging and product is really important. But the biggest thing, back to what I was saying, is that really tying the top of the funnel acquisition, what you're doing up there, to customer, user, player behaviors in the app and lifetime value is essential. If or in the app or the website, I should say, not just strictly talking about apps here, but in the website is absolutely key, because ultimately, if you're changing your acquisition sources and channels, that's going to have an impact on the way people are using the product. If product just look at that and say, oh my God, we've got 98% like churn in day one, it's very easy to assume that's a product issue, but actually chances are somebody's changed something in the acquisition funnel and that's actually had an impact. So actually being able to tie those worlds together, right through from the top of the stack through to, customer behavior, to sort of segment that, understand what's driving what, is really an essential part of MarTech in 2021. So I'm a massive advocate. I mean, this is why we partner with companies like mParticle and Amplitude, because we use their platforms all the time, and you can't really do stuff these days without having that level of insight. So I guess before we just hand into the final poll and open it up to Q&A, Alex, do you want to give us like a one tip on if you're looking at MarTech today, and I saw the initial poll was like, people are not sure really whether the MarTech stack is fit for purpose or not, which is, I guess from my point of view as an agency, is great because we can come and help. But I guess from your point of view, Alex, what would you say is the one bit of advice that you would give to people that are looking at it now?
Yeah, okay. Well, one thing I've told a few small teams is that if they go with a CDP, they can try and use a lot of free tiers and trials, which means if you're not sure what the marketing stack or product analytics stack is going to look like, you can cheaply and quickly, you can connect something and data will flow there instead of having to implement all its snippets. Then you don't want to go with it, you remove it all and go on to the next thing. Using a CDP, you sign up and connect it and try it the same day, and potentially get rid of it the same day if you don't like it. And that's the correct way, in my opinion, to build that kind of analytics stack with a set of small experiments instead of a load of analysis and planning.
Perfect. And then Aaron, same question to you. What would you say is the one bit of advice you would give?
I'd say jump in straight away. CDPs are definitely the way forward. And with the way the world is changing, privacy and everything else, the way of DMPs is basically gone. So you're going to have to adapt and start using your own data. So CDPs are a must, in my opinion. I think just take your time picking them. There's lots out there. If you go down the route of a cloud-based platform, then just be wary that you basically tied into their ecosystem. Whereas if you go for a core player like mParticle or something like that, you've got that the ability to swap things out. So if you don't like using whatever analytics tool you've chosen, you can just swap it out for a new one. And the same with your marketing channels. So just make sure you pick something that's got a lot of connectors. Yeah, that's it really.
Cool. Then I guess at this stage, it's probably worth opening a poll, which is whether your existing tech stack is actually working or not. So I would be very keen to, I guess, get a feel for the people we've got here as to what the results are on that. I'll also just apologize if my internet connection was dying halfway amongst my speech earlier. I can honestly say I've never had issues in our offices before with it, but sod's law. To the day I need it, it's failing me a little. So I do apologize to anyone that witnessed me in pixelated form. Cool. Hopefully we'll get some results on this shortly. So I'll save you singing a song, but I shouldn't imagine it will take too long.
Thank you very much, Mike, Aaron, and Alex for sharing all these great insights. We're going to also move to the Q&A, Mike. And I think we already have a few questions. I saw that Aaron, you answered to one of them already. We have another question as well that Aaron is answering as well. So I think we can start with that, Mike, and finalize with that Q&A session.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed Aaron is typing an answer as we speak into the question that really is around privacy and consent, which is a massive issue. If you get that wrong, it's very, very dangerous. So it's not an optional thing. So it would be great, Aaron, if you could maybe answer that question.
Sure. It's a good question. That's why I was taking my time. So mParticle does it pretty well, to be fair. We do have all our consent goes into CDP. So if that's a consent that's driven from Salesforce or from the website preference center, or even down to IDFA, I forgot what it's called now, ATT, the app transparency stuff that Apple's done. All of that stuff gets fed into the CDP, and in the CDP, you can build suppressions in the CDP if that's the way you want to go, or you can just, like I say, just when you build an audience, you just say if they haven't got consent, don't include them. So there's multiple ways to do it within the CDP, and it, like I say, it's fairly easy to get it into the CDP, and like I say, mParticle have done a lot of work around iOS 14 to make sure that they're ready, and they're available. That the consent is in their platform basically.
Cool, perfect. Hopefully the anonymous attendee, because I don't know who it is, but hopefully that answers your question. Of course, please don't hesitate to fire any more questions into the panel. I mean, you've got two, I guess, very well-regarded experts on the call at your disposal today. So please don't hesitate to ask any more questions. I mean, I think looking at the poll responses that we had both to the first and sort of final poll, it is quite clear that the world of MarTech it's a bit of an unknown one, and I think it's very easy to assume for us that when we're talking to like King.com or something that everybody in the world is an app-first business that basically grew up with an Amplitude and an mParticle, and that isn't the case. There's a lot of businesses out there where this is something new. There are obviously established businesses like M&S, which are sort of leading the charge in using this modern technology. But there are a lot of businesses as well that ultimately this is their first foray into MarTech and what it looks like these days. And we're now no longer in a world of just desktop web. We're in a whole different different arena. And really, what I would say is that don't hesitate to reach out to someone like myself or any of, I guess, the CMA team or anybody really that is sort of works in this sector, because we'd be absolutely delighted to just have a conversation around some of the challenges you're facing and ultimately how platforms like mParticle and Amplitude can sort of answer the questions. They're not going to answer everything, so it actually might be that your challenges are better solved with something else, but certainly don't hesitate to reach out to people in the industry, because like I've said thousands of times on this call, MarTech covers everything from acquisition through to user reactivation and lapse prevention. So it is cradle to grave and beyond the grave almost if we look at reactivation sort of stuff. So this is really, really important to digital businesses these days. And it's again, with desktop web, mobile web, app, even sort of new platforms that are coming out, TV apps as well. But there is a whole new ecosystem of data and events and attributes and insight that you can get from this sort of stuff. And I would implore anybody, please don't hesitate. Just reach out and have a chat. I'm not going to charge you to talk to me. By all means, please email me at mike@consultmyapp.com. I would be delighted to talk to you, or probably give you one of our experts who knows more than I do in the field to chat to, because we're all in this together, and it's we work with companies, like I said, from those super savvy King.coms through to sort of more traditional bricks and mortar businesses that are really on a journey here. So I think that it's hopefully has, there we are. Right, it looks like it did answer the question, which is good. Very good to hear, Mr. Anonymous or Mrs. Anonymous attendee. But I think that pretty much wraps up. And like I said, we wanted to keep this informal. I don't want to sit here and bore you for another 10 minutes about stuff that just to fill the hour. Hopefully you guys have found it very useful. And I mean, ultimately, we hopefully are in agreement that this sort of tech is, it's going to be required, whether you've got it now or not, or whether you're looking at how to use it. It's really a case of, get the people on board that, whether you recruit internally or use an external company such as us, just speak to the people in the know, because there is a lot of value to be had here. And if you get this right, it will give you a significant advantage. And we see this massively in fintech, actually. Fintechs, so we look at Exinity, are leveraging this data and analytics to, I guess, get ahead of what is quite a busy marketplace. So yeah, hopefully this has all been very useful. Frank, I'm just going to quickly hand to you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Mike, Aaron, and Alex. I think it was very insightful. As you rightly said, we are all in it together and very much part of an ecosystem where we can essentially help customers to have that delighted experience, essentially for every brand we work with. So thank you very much, Mike, for moderating and sharing your insight, and Aaron, thank you as well as Alex. It was very insightful, and as I said at the beginning, we will be sharing the recording of this event after the meeting. Thank you very much, all. Have a good rest of the day and the week, and speak to you soon.
Have a good one, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye bye.